cell that is mainly affected by Leigh syndrome is the mitochondria. The mitochondria is also referred to as the powerhouses of the cell because that's where they produce the most amount of energy in the form of ATP or adenosine triphosphate through the process of aerobic respiration, where they take glucose and oxygen to produce ATP. For the relationship between the mitochondria and the nucleus sends instructions and genes for proteins that the mitochondria needs in order to produce ATP. The endoplasmic reticulum and the mitochondria share calcium and lipids in order to help each other maintain metabolism. Golgi uses ATP from the mitochondria to package and transport the proteins using exocytosis, which is a form of active transport that requires ATP. Mitochondria provides ATP for signals that keep the plasma membrane working properly. Cytoskeleton moves the mitochondria around the cell to where energy is needed. Lysosomes break down the damaged mitochondria through a process called mitophagy.
The cause of Leigh syndrome is inherited genetic mutations that disrupt the body's ability to produce ATP. It has been found that mutations in more than 75 different genes can cause Leigh syndrome. Leigh syndrome can be inherited in 2 different ways, one of which is autosomal recessive disorder. It is where a child inherits the same gene mutation from each parent. The parents are carriers of the changed gene, but they do not have the disease. The other way to inherit Leigh syndrome is an X-linked recessive genetic disorder. It is where a gene change on an X chromosome causes the condition, and it can come from either the biological mother or father. Some signs of early onset Leigh syndrome include difficulty swallowing, diarrhea and vomiting, hypotonia, which is low muscle tone, irritability and chronic crying, or poor head control and reflexes. Other symptoms may occur as the disease progresses. These symptoms can also appear with late onset Leigh syndrome. These symptoms include dementia, movement and balance problems, dysarthria, which is difficulty forming words, dystonia, which is involuntary muscle contractions, muscle spasms, partial paralysis, peripheral neuropathy, seizures, and slowed physical growth. Leigh syndrome can also affect eye nerves, leading to problems like crossed eyes, deterioration of the optic nerves, eye weakness or paralysis, involuntary rapid eye movement, or vision loss. Teens or adults with late-onset Leigh syndrome may also experience color blindness and loss of central vision. Leigh syndrome may also lead to a buildup of lactic acid in a child's bloodstream. This causes lactic acidosis. There also may be too much carbon dioxide in their blood. Lactic acidosis and increased levels of carbon dioxide can lead to breathing problems such as shortness of breath, apnea, and abnormal or rapid breathing. It can also lead to heart problems like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is thickened heart muscle, or kidney problems. As for treatments, there is no cure for Leigh syndrome. Treatments tend to focus on easing symptoms to keep children comfortable. And unfortunately, Leigh syndrome is fatal.
Leigh syndrome is a mitochondrial disease. Located in the inner membrane of the mitochondria, the electron transport chain, or the ETC, allows for aerobic respiration. However, patients with Leigh syndrome have a mutation in their mitochondrial DNA, leading to defective and inefficient ATP production. This can prove to be a detrimental issue, since some of our most important organs, such as our heart, our brain, and our muscles, require an immense amount of energy in order to function correctly. The electron transport chain has 5 protein complexes that allow it to transport electrons across the mitochondria to make ATP. And if anywhere from 1 to all of these 5 chains has a mutation, the patient cannot produce energy correctly. The disease can cause the mitochondria to not transport enough electrons, to leak out a large amount of reactive oxygen species, or unstable oxygen molecules with unpaired electrons, which can cause damage to other organelles when not regulated, make lysosomes less efficient, and disrupt calcium signaling between the ER and the mitochondria. Therefore, if cells and organs like the brain cannot create enough energy or their functions are disrupted, they can die due to a buildup of lactic acid or a malfunction in cell-to-cell communication. Think of it as a fireplace that warms up a house. If the wood is wet, matches don't work, or the chimney is clogged, the house is not going to get warm because you can't build a good fire. Just like the body cannot make enough ATP to support its functions. For this reason, the disease is extremely degenerative. While there is no current cure, some vitamins, antioxidants, and gene therapies can aid in cell metabolism in order to make the disease less progressive. Thiamine and riboflavin, or vitamin B1 and B2, can help support mitochondrial enzymes or assist some of the mutated ETC chains. Antioxidants like idebenone can help reduce ROC stress and help strengthen the membrane of the mitochondria to minimize leakage. Finally, gene therapies using induced pluripotent stem cells are currently being researched in order to model disease cells to see how gene correction can prevent it.
The most common form of mitochondrial illness in children is thought to be Leigh syndrome, an inherited neurometabolic disorder. Due to numerous obstacles in the drug discovery process, there are currently no therapies for Leigh syndrome. Over 110 distinct genes are involved in Leigh syndrome, causing causative variations, which probably result in distant and common biochemical changes that frequently cause overlapping phenotypic traits. A phenotypic trait is an observable characteristic or behavior of an organism, such as height, eye color, or specific behavior. It is still yet unclear how pathogenic variations in mitochondrial genes change cellular phenotype to cause such diseases. Drug discovery and approximately scaled clinical trials are hampered by the variety of occurrences within particular casualties of these variations. A Leigh syndrome suppositism, which is a conference or meeting to discuss a particular subject, was organized by the Boston University iCamp Lab and Cure Meadow Foundation to discuss the current issues in medication discovery and to help researchers, medical professions, patients, and families communicate with one another. In addition to connecting patients with scientists and providers to promote community and communication, this suppositism brought together leading scientists and providers to showcase recent advancements in medication discovery and innovative models of the mitochondrial illness. Thank you for listening to our presentation on Leigh syndrome. Now I hope you learned how you could help in the future. Bye guys!